like the ship to go. Now.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Lafayette Library, where we run our libraries as officially as a Sisko kitchen, if that makes any sense. How you doing, John?
I am doing good, man. Doing good. I'm excited to talk about these two chapters. Like I told you earlier, pre-recording, I was kind of having to read this on the fly, and I was, upset because these two chapters, I feel like you needed to be in a quiet corner, enjoying it, getting the mental picture. But unfortunately, my life has been very busy the past month or so I had to do what I could. But yeah, man, I'm excited to hear what you think about it.
Yeah, man. Speaking of reading and getting caught up on these two chapters 11 and 12. On chapter 12, it's a pretty thick, big, not huge, but it has a lot of pages. The other chapters are pretty much way shorter. So when I was thumbing through, I'm like, oh, I'm gonna have to read a lot. But you know what? It was so interesting that all of the pages just kind of just flew by. So I swept through it really, really quickly. So I did very much enjoy these two chapters. And we kind of start off in chapter 11 by debating the finer points of the Prime Directive. This I really thought was fascinating. What did you think about this cadet, this Tryla, if I'm saying it right, Tryla Scott, and her outright defiance of the Starfleet as colonizers, I guess, about the merits of the Prime Directive?
Man, so I'm sure just like you, my first instinct was, man, shut up. But as we get more into it, I kind of understand what she's saying. And we actually see that come up a lot in Trek and that's usually the captain's biggest battle is it's most of the time it's a way you need to break the Prime Directive to get to a goal. Yeah. And it's kind of one of those situations where the ends justify the means, but you always hear a pushback from someone else on the crew that says, hey, you're the Prime Directive. We don't supposed to. And the biggest example is Janeway, right? She broke the Prime Directive almost every episode. Now there's argument to be had. You're lost in the Delta Quadrant. Rules be damned. We got to get home, right? But so I kind of get her point, and I love the call out to the duck blind scenario. Do you remember that episode on TNG? I think it was.
I do not. Enlighten me.
Oh man, so this was, and I wish if I'd have had time, I'd have done my research, and I apologize. It was a TNG episode. There were some scientists on this planet. It was a pre-warp civilization, and they were doing exactly what she's saying. They were studying them. Well, they had a lab set up on the face of this mountain, and it was camouflaged. And I think at some point the camouflage went down or broke down, and somebody got shot. And anyway, it was a big debate on, what do? We got to go rescue them, but we can't expose ourselves. And was it Will Riker ended up getting captured or something? And yeah, it was a big problem. But that was the first and only time I've ever seen that duck blind thing.
Now, was this the Picard episode?
The Picard,
where they started worshiping Picard because they saw him?
Yes, that is exactly the episode.
Yeah, the Picard. Okay, I remember. Yeah, that's a good one. Now, I will say another instance we had those duck blinds was in the movie, was it Insurrection? The movie where Data kind of goes crazy and they have to go and get him from, I think it was the Baku. What movie was that? I think it was Insurrection. But yeah, that was another instance where we had it. They had the little... In the side of the mountain, they had the little lab and they were spying. But good points made by Tryla about, look, we could be observing these people from space in orbit. We could use our sensors to see what's going on. But that's not what we're doing. We are spying on them. All the fears you have from when we think about alien abductions here on Earth, all those same fears. So we could, we're spying on them. We're wearing their clothes. We're doing prosthetics and walking among them. Yeah, this whole idea of the Prime Directive and how we go about it within Starfleet, I think she did an excellent job of laying out the downfalls of of the Prime Directive.
And I was thinking the same question that Benjamin asked her, like, if you are so much against this, why are you even here? And I love her answer of, it was like someone has to push back to make it better, basically.
As we think Sisko would do, he raises his voice in outright defiance, or I guess support of the Prime Directive. He's saying that you're wrong, and he makes the case of why we need the Prime Directive. Now, this whole thing is like a precursor to a whole relationship these guys are finna have, and yet another heartbreak for Mr. Sisko. But I like that he challenged her, and we even have this part of the story where the professor's like, well, you go write a 10-page paper about, why we need the Prime Directive, and you write a 10-page paper why we don't. So I love that challenge there, and this was, a good way to kick off their relationship. I thought that was lovely.
I got halfway thinking, like, man, we got a young Captain Kirk here in the making with the women. Like, Sisko is just one after another, man. Just one after another. Gosh. And I didn't expect them to be dating because, the initial interaction was so adversarial. You would think that wouldn't work out. But, and then, like, they kind of sprung it on you. Like, it was argument, and then next thing you know, she's laying her head on his chest under a tree.
Yeah. It sparked a relationship, a reason for them to connect. And he already was saying how cute she was. So, just beautifully played out. And I could not help but think to myself, man, I would have absolutely died or loved to see this scene in a Starfleet Academy show. Can't you see that playing out on screen? And they have to do it. I don't care if they rip it from the book. They have to have the professors and the finer parts of the Prime Directive and Prime Directive 101 being debated. They have to do it because it's just so well done in this book, man.
Man, listen, that's what I was saying earlier. Like, if it's any chapters in this book that we've read so far that I would love to see an on-screen adaptation of, it's these two chapters. Just like you said, number one, the Starfleet Academy scenes, that would be great to see. And as we get further in chapter 12, like, wouldn't you just love to see that on screen? Like, I don't know how they would make it, but the description, that was amazing. And then I'm sure we'll get to a lot of Easter eggs hidden throughout these chapters. So, yeah, I would love to see this played out.
Yeah, you're going to have to help me out on some of the Easter eggs because, of course, we make reference to the Prime Directive. We bring up Kirk, we bring up even April, I think, in this first chapter. And in reference to a few episodes we've seen in the TOS era. So, yeah, I just thought this chapter was fantastic, and they're forming a relationship. And before you know it, she's off to meet the parents. And they did such an interesting thing in this, or I guess Mr. Attico did such an interesting thing in this book where Sisko is getting, or Benjamin is getting the opposite, or sort of another view of what him and Zoe had. He gave up Zoe for Starfleet, and now he's gotten into Starfleet, and his first girlfriend since leaves him for Starfleet. I liked how they came up the story of Twyla and her dad and talking about how they always imagined visiting Japan and seeing the scenery and the mountains, and Benjamin takes her there. And it's at that point she realizes, man, I love you, but I gotta cut this cold turkey.
What's sad is he didn't leave Zoe either. Zoe left him for the reason of, you're going to leave me eventually for Starfleet, and I don't want to make you choose, so we're going to end this relationship. And then again, we have the same thing happen for the opposite reason, but neither time did Ben make the decision to separate. Now, was it a good decision for him in the end? True. But, man, can you imagine the heartbreak of 2 times that you were in love with someone and they put your career in front of the relationship that you wanted most?
Yeah, it was rough. And some of the things that Twyla brought out of him was she mentioned that everybody sees it. I see it. Why aren't you in command? She brings this up. This is kind of the first spark we get that, maybe he's not supposed to be an engineer. So I love that it was his relationship with her that brought that out. I thought that was really interesting. But yeah, just so many good things in this chapter. Again, referencing Zoe, Twyla just tells him, I love you deeply, completely. This relationship is becoming the most important thing in my life. And she couldn't have that because she had a mission, just like Benjamin has a mission to, ascend the ranks of Starfleet. So just good stuff there, man.
I was curious. I was kind of curious on, because I know we kind of started this whole journey off with him dead set on engineer. And in my head, I'm thinking, well, Sisko was, as the only story we knew, he was always in command. And I mean, here and there, he showed flashes of engineering experience, but we never heard mention of it. And I've been waiting for this chapter to kind of give us an explanation on what moved him from such a desire to be in engineering to ending up in command. And I mean, he really, at this point, I mean, up until chapter 12, you don't really notice much command ability with him, really. He just seems like a loner. He seems like a perfect engineer. Let me do my job, leave me alone. Like command, at this point, you just don't see it from him. But as we move through these chapters, we start seeing what pushes him in that direction.
Yeah, and, as comes with heartbreak, sometimes you just want to get the furthest away you can from whatever broke your heart or whoever broke your heart. And as Chyla is in command and she's going to mainly remain within the solar system, he is like, maybe I should take an engineering assignment outside of the solar system.
After a breakup in these days, and you're like, I'm just going to go to another solar system. That's drastic.
Yeah, well, desperate measures, man. So he's off to an assignment that he asked for on Starbase 137. So this chapter could be like a few episodes of a Starfleet Academy show. This assignment on Starbase 137 is actually pretty unique. We're going to this planet, this Moser 4, which is a planet that is mostly water. And I was like, what? Is this Stargate Atlantis happening here?
We had another episode in Voyager. They went to that planet that was mostly water, and they had to take the Delta Flyer in. But we didn't see 900-foot trees either. So, no, 9,000. Was it 9,000-foot trees underneath the water? That's insane.
I found myself, I know you said that you were kind of like doing other stuff while you're trying to consume this chapter. I just found myself, my brain was kind of hurting because I was trying to visualize, like, okay, it's the ocean, but there's trees under the water, and there's this entire ancient city that was discovered by Michael Burnham and Captain Philippa Georgiou. Now, there's a book called Desperate Hours, where they do go to a planet that's mostly water, but I don't think the name of the planet was Moser 4, but it reminded me of that. But I enjoyed the shout out nonetheless. I thought the shout out was pretty fantastic.
You know what? I spent a lot of time trying to think whether or not we actually saw that planet on Discovery, and I couldn't, which I didn't finish Discovery. Shame, I know. But I just did not remember Georgiou being on any planet remotely like that.
No, and of course we didn't get much of Captain Georgiou anyway. So even though we haven't seen it, or maybe it was in a book and I just don't remember it, but I thought that was a pretty interesting shout out to them nonetheless. How did you picture this water world in your mind?
You know what? I'm thinking of it like a combination of Waterworld, the movie, and Avatar. Like, take Avatar's jungle and throw it in the water in Waterworld.
So now you're Kevin Costner. Now you're a blue Kevin Costner. Okay.
Hey, that might work, man. That might work.
But yeah, I thought it was really interesting how they laid that out. And then we have like this not Starbase, but this, I forgot what the exact terminology was. This relay tower above the planet, which, that's where they thought they would be. Little did they know they were going back to an archaic style of ships and actually sailing the seas. And we have this, what did they call him? Master Chief, name. Wow, what was the guy's name?
West.
But what was his nickname? That's what I'm trying.
The Rock.
Yeah, The Rock. That's what I'm looking for. Okay, John Davidicus West, otherwise known as The Rock, because when he was between a rock and a hard place, he sawed off his arm to save his ship.
Oh god.
I like really y'all went literal with this, didn't you? And he has a steel arm and he smokes a lot of cigars. Yeah, kind of just the picture you have in your head of like a gruff general or a drill sergeant in your head. Is kind of everything he is to me from this description.
Man, so let me ask you this: what did your imagination come up with this HQ area on the planet? They described it as being 10 miles wide, but they carved it out of it. Was it a tree, a 10-mile wide tree? Was it a multiple trees, or how did you picture that?
You know, dude, I just sat there for a minute and tried to conceive what they were talking about, because it's this giant open. I guess I kind of pictured like a big dome with these trees that are reaching the surface. And I know they said in the middle there was one central part where you can see all of the dome or all of the facility. So yeah, that kind of just hurt my brain to even think about. And then there's even parts where you can like go to the top of the spires and launch from onto the water, but it's underwater. I was confused, but you know what I'm talking about with they're talking about the launch points.
Yeah,
it just racked my brain to try to figure it out, but it did fascinate me nonetheless. I'm like, wow, if they could ever realize whatever he's putting down here would be amazing. And also, you know, I think, you know, we kind of got to the part of the book where we finally passed the midway point and we have these pictures. I would have loved a picture of this planet, because I thought it just fascinates me.
Me too. I would have loved. I've actually purposely flipped to those pages just to see if we could see something, and there was nothing there. But I have a suggestion. We should get together, and by the time we record our next episode, we're going to draw our own interpretation of what that looks like, and we will show it on the next episode. And then maybe we get people to vote on who's better and who's closest.
Okay. Hey, that's a call to action right there. I'm down for it, man. I'm going to have to comb these pages a little bit more closely to figure out exactly how he laid this out.
And don't use AI.
Oh, and then I'm putting it in ChatGPT, or what's the other one? What's the image one? I can't even think of the name. Midjourney. I'm putting it in Midjourney, man. Come on. Got to be descriptive. Well, I kind of want to do that actually now that you said. but yeah, man, this chapter also does something which, you know, me and you are both went to USM at one point, and I've had professors, you know, that said once we, you know, if you want to drop the class, you could drop it now because it's going to be hard, and it gives you all the reasons why you're not going to pass, you know, just totally destroying you on the first day you're in the classroom. The Rock was no different. It was like, ring this bell, I'll beat me out of here. No harm, no foul. You know, go into one of those patency operations like command or sciences. We're engineers here.
Man, it kind of reminds me of, you probably hadn't read it. I got into David Goggins a lot a year or so ago. And I was reading his book, and, you know, he's gone through Navy SEAL training like 3 times. Long story why he went through 3 times. But that's one of the things in Navy SEAL training is that bell. And if you want to quit, like, you just get up and ring that bell. Yeah.
That's a real thing.
That's a real thing.
That's so cool. I did not know that. Man, that is crazy. And then, of course, 5 seconds into it, the Vulcan cadet is like, this is highly illogical. I ain't building no wood ship. Bye. That was so good. So good. I wouldn't expect anything less.
You know what? That's kind of a thought experiment you can do with yourself. Like, Vulcans are known to take the most logical course. They're stronger mentally, they're stronger physically. you would think by the description of how they do things that they would take the best path. But is that necessarily the best path? Will it be better that he didn't learn this lesson that they're learning by going through it? Will he become better? Will he not? We don't know. Will he overcome that because he's already smarter and more physically fit than we are? I don't know, but it's kind of like, you know, you look at that, like if I were in that position and a Vulcan just said, hey man, this is pointless, I'm leaving. Like, I gotta at some point think, he's got a point, man. He's got a point. Like, I need to push myself.
Yeah.
But I mean, if a Vulcan said it's worthless, you know, what do you do?
See, you know, it's like when the smartest person in the room tells you to just give up, it's not even worth it. And then, yeah, I just, and if the smartest person or supposedly the most logical person in the room bows out immediately, I'm like, what hope does that leave for the rest of us? This is not going to go well.
God.
Oh, man.
I would love to know what that Vulcan did with the rest of his career.
Well, we need to look up the name. It's probably somebody. I don't know if that person is referenced again. That's one thing I didn't do. So if you're listening to this after the fact, I did not go and look up any of these names. So if I didn't recognize it immediately, I didn't try to go look it up. But yeah, a few of the cadets fall off and, you know, discouraging. You know, we even have the case of one of the cadets who everybody thought was the presumed leader. I guess he did take the leadership role, and even he bows out after a little bit. And one of the other cadets tells Benjamin that, oh man, you were running things anyway. He was the named leader, but you were really the person that was running the show. And I love that how this test is set up is that you have this almost impossible task, and Star Trek is kind of known for having a possible task. And the thing was not really to just go about it the way that he says exactly, but he left the room for you to improvise. Because you will know, John, engineer, things always ain't gonna go the way they're supposed to. So you have to have the ability to improvise. And if Scotty has told us anything, you have to have the ability to improvise, think on the fly, do whatever you can to get it done. I also like that we had one enlisted was it not officer, but what is it called?
Non-enlisted officer.
Yeah, non-enlisted officer. Yeah, so I thought that was pretty cool as well.
Which was Miles O'Brien.
Yep, Miles O'Brien. So I love that little shout out there. I thought that was pretty good. But what do you think about this quest and Benjamin assuming leadership in this impossible task that these guys had?
You know, it goes back to a cliche saying or quote you hear in a lot of movies, similar movies and shows, and they say, you know, a true leader doesn't ask or seek leadership, but it's thrust upon them. And that was kind of the first thought I had with this, was like he has no even inkling of wanting to do anything, but he just naturally leads people, and not even like telling them what to do to lead them. Like, he's just doing it out of the goodness of his heart and helping. He could care less if the project went better or not. He just was helping people get the best out of themselves, which is essentially a leader. And I love the fact that he just didn't realize it. And I think even to the point we get to the end of the 12th chapter, he still hadn't really comprehended or grasped that fact. Like, there's still doubt about him. But what makes Sisko great is he's just natural leadership. Whether he thinks he is, whether he's in position or not, you can make him the lowest man on a totem pole, and for some reason, everybody follows him. And that's just always made him such a great leader.
Yeah, it's something about when you can inspire people. And I think that's what he managed to do. Now, first, let's say he just doesn't think he has any true leadership abilities, but going back to that cooking and how it's influenced almost every facet of his life. Hey, he's been in the kitchen. He knows how to, work the kitchen, and he's kind of unconsciously using that ability that he learned from working the kitchen to get this task completed. So I thought that was really interesting, even so much that he inspired one of the cadets who obviously wanted to leave, but when you have somebody that you inspire so much that they keep doing it anyway just because they don't want to see you
Right.
fail, that's when you know you're a true leader. Because the moment they get the ship built, you know, that however long's task is completed, this guy says, okay, I'm done. I'm going to another part, you know, another division. But I don't want, hey, bro, I just don't want to leave y'all, man. You know, I don't want to leave you hanging like that. So it takes somebody special to inspire people to keep going even when they don't want to.
Right. Especially on an impossible task that you just have no faith in completing anyway. And you, like, he most likely made the decision he wasn't staying early on. Can you imagine looking at a process that long that's almost impossible, and your only reason you're staying is because of this one person? Like, that's a hard decision to make. It has to be a lot of inspiration coming towards you to keep going with that. So I respect it. I do respect that he stayed. He didn't pull the illogical Vulcan on him.
Did you scoff a little bit when they named the ship?
You know, no, I didn't, because you know why? I am such a fanboy of the Defiant. Like, to me, I just love that part. Like, I get it. Like, it was very on the nose. Like, we knew what was coming, right? It was, I don't know what they call that. They have a word for that in cinema, and I don't know what it's called, but I was all for it, man. Like, now if they would have named it like Enterprise, then I'd have been like, you know what?
Yeah, really. But this was fitting.
Yeah.
This was fit. It was surprising. It was a little on the nose, but also it kind of worked for the story they're telling here. So I appreciated it. Let's talk Lieutenant Cass Tovid, the understudy of the Rock, or kind of the second in command to the Rock. When the Rock's away, Tovid will play. He's a Betazoid. And he's a jerk. I love this lesson. Again, this get Attico, get Mr. Attico to write on Starfleet Academy, because these are all lessons that we need to be learning in Starfleet Academy. No matter where you are, even in Starfleet, there's going to be a-holes. And Tovid is one of them. What did you think about Tovid and Sisko interactions? And we can even get to like the ultimate thing that happens. And then just general a-holes in Starfleet.
You know, we do have those on occasion, more than occasional. A lot of times we have them. And I'll say this. Star Trek knows how to create a-hole antagonist, right? It's not really that they're evil per se, but they're just so much of a ass. You just can't deal with it. You get, like, again, the main one I go back to is Kai Wynn. Like, it took...
Oh, yeah.
Can you imagine the writing? Like, whoever wrote that character in the script, freaking genius. I hated that woman with a passion just because of that. I feel like this Tovin, I can't even say his name. I feel like we could get to that point if I see him so much on the screen. But that being said, in Star Trek, we always learn, the characters always learn something about themselves through dealing with people like this. So, and I guess just the overall arching goal of Star Trek is we learn through adversity. And that was just one of those things. Initially, I didn't think it was going to be that bad. Like, I just thought it was another one of those, sub-underlings that thought the world of themselves and thought crappy about everybody else. And it was just going to be another problem for Sisko to deal with. I did not think we would get towards possible murder charges.
I cannot believe he took it that far. Now, some interesting things in this chapter. I don't know if I knew that reading someone else's mind was actually illegal. I know it was like shunned upon, but I didn't realize it was actually illegal. And it's stated in this chapter that it's actually illegal.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong. I didn't know that Betazoids had the ability for full telepathy. I thought they were just empathic. In other words, they sense emotions and I mean, I knew they could communicate telepathically, but they never could like read minds. They could read your emotions. They could communicate telepathically.
Yeah, and I think I'm on that same wavelength as you, because I didn't. But here's they kind of lay it out as that reading minds. Maybe just like a nuanced part of that. I mean, maybe if you even reading their telepathic emotions, still that's sort of a violation in a sense. Yeah, I'm a little confused
something
on
that
one as
bothered
well.
me, and something that bothered me in Star Trek on a few different times is when we're dealing with a telepathic person, and they're not allowed. Like, how do you not read somebody's mind if you can read minds? Like, how can you control that? Like, I mean, I'm not telepathic, obviously, so I wouldn't know. But like, there's not a switch you can turn off. So like, you look at somebody, your first thought is read it. That's like somebody telling you, "Hey, don't look at that guy over there." What are you gonna do? You gonna turn around and look at him?
I think you can do it. I mean, to me, it's sort of like, you heard the phrase code switching, or
No.
as I like to say it, when you're in front of your parents, you don't curse, but when you're in front of your friends, you curse like a sailor. It could be like just a muscle that works, that you can, if you have to use skill to use it, even though it is inherent to their species. Yeah, I don't know, man. That's kind of a tough one.
Tell yourself not to think about something. And can you control that? Can you control your thoughts? If you cannot control your thoughts, I can't control looking into somebody else's.
That's why we have to meditate on it. No.
Oh, God.
And actually, I just saw the not telepathy in this. Oh, I guess it is in a sense. The episode where on Enterprise, where they meet up with the Vulcans that follow the old ways, and T'Pol and this Vulcan do the mind meld. He like violates her. So it made me think of that just a little bit, although it's kind of totally different. But
we actually had that on a couple episodes.
yeah, man. But this guy was a total jerk, and it got to the point where they were trying to solve the problem of cutting these trees and bringing them up with a tractor beam onto some platform. I just thought they could beam it, but maybe it's just so big they can't really beam it in.
They said the tractor beam couldn't lock onto them because of the material that it was made of. It couldn't get a solid lock. Now, here's my very layman advice to them, and I know this is old school, but like, can we not just tie something to it and pull it up?
We're observing the ancient ways. Yeah, you're not wrong. You're not wrong. Yeah, good point. Good point. But yeah, we get the case of Sisko going down to actually figure out this variance problem in the transporter beam wavelength to try to be able to lock on to these trees as they cut them. And he gets stranded out there. That's just crazy, man. That's just crazy. And in classic Sisko fashion, after he swims for 5 hours to get back to the base and immediately walks in, after he kind of catches his breath and faces Tovit man to man, what does Sisko do in this situation, John?
Oh, God. It's classic. Hey, it reminded me of the episode when he was with Q.
Yes.
Q kept pestering him and he just punched him. He said, Picard never punched me. He's not Picard.
Yes. So good. So good. Yeah. And it also shows us where he gets that moxie from. In this chapter, the statement is made that, and I wish I could find the exact part of the book, but he says, there's no use of trying to placate or a coward to someone just because they're a superior officer. Always speak your mind, always be yourself. Because when he was dealing with The Rock, he found that by him not being assertive, him not speaking up, that he's kind of doing himself a disservice. So yeah, but this situation with Tovit, man, Tovit was a jerk. Tovit tried to get this man killed because he had got wind that The Rock wanted to keep Benjamin on because he was such a good leader. He wanted to be his understudy as well. Like Tovit became over. Did I read that right? 135 years? Did I read that correctly?
No, I think so.
That's crazy. But yeah, The Rock pays it forward. He pays it forward. He doesn't get Sisko kicked out of Starfleet. So yeah, I just found this like a good lesson learning chapter for Benjamin, and I'm honestly glad that he stood up for himself, because you wouldn't see Benjamin acting any other way when somebody basically tries to kill him in plain daylight, in plain sight. He did exactly what I thought he would do in the situation.
And not only what he would do, like I feel like he still unconsciously, it's what his father would have done. It's how his father would have taught him, you know, and I think he got the same reinforcement from The Rock that his father would have given him. Now, I do have to say this Sisko, the young Ben Sisko, he punched him multiple times and then made the statement afterwards, like, how did that feel, or something like that.
Yeah. You don't get to strike an officer and stay in the academy. Sisko, you're done. Yeah, good stuff, man. I enjoyed the heck out of the chapter, man. But yeah, that's kind of it. Any other takeaways that you have from this that I kind of either brushed over or did not cover? Because it's so much in these two chapters, man. I enjoyed this to pieces.
It is. I absolutely loved it. And like I said, I would love to see an on-screen version of at least these two chapters. It'd be nice to see a whole on-screen version, a movie of this entire book. Let's hope somebody's listening. But yes, I'm sure we kind of glazed over some things that and I can't really come to mind right now. But I mean, there was a lot in both of these chapters to touch on that I'm sure we missed. But man, it's just, I think the sum up these two chapters was just growth, which we've kind of seeing that's been kind of normal in all the chapters, but we're starting to see the Sisko we know become that Sisko.
Yeah. And there's just a few real quick I point out that we kind of skipped over was when Benjamin went and asked The Rock for more time. His team encouraged him to go ask for more time. And The Rock just told him, look, if you can't cut it, you have to adapt. You have to adapt if you're going to be a Starfleet officer. Everything is not going to go your way. You're going to have to be able to adapt in those situations where, everything's on the line. You in deep space, you're not going to have anybody that's going to bail you out or give you more time. You're going to have to learn to adapt. So I really enjoyed that lesson. And, what I was talking before about when he talked about being intimidated in the book, it says, we had, talking about his team, we had such a reverence for the man, talking about The Rock, that we had never considered approaching him with our own opinion, with our own options, our own opinions. And after that, I vowed never to let someone's rank or title intimidate me. So, just classic Sisko stuff right there.
Absolutely.
Yeah, man, we're on the back 9 of these chapters, man, or the back half of these chapters. We'll do chapter 13 and 14 next time. So I can't wait to kind of get into ever so closer to, the Sisko we know and love from the show. So yeah, these are just continue to be great chapters, and I can't wait to get into more of it. So any closing thoughts before we kind of get out here, man? Anything to say?
Please just go read it. Anybody's listening to us, we don't do it justice. You have to read it. Anybody that has the power, please make it into an on-screen movie or a short series, whatever case you can do to make this work. That'll be great. What I do love, though, is, again, we're getting the backstory of Benjamin Sisko. And it makes me appreciate DS9 so much more. So I'm actually going to start watching DS9 again for the however many 10th time that I've done it. But because I think if we after reading this and rewatching DS9, I think we're going to be seeing an entire different series.
Yeah, it's definitely going to shed some new light on the subject. And we just did an actual episode on the normal show, our normal live stream, talking about beta canon. So this is a piece of beta canon that I'm really loving. So yeah, man, I can't wait to get into more of it. Again, if you're watching or listening, whether it's your first time or whether you've been with us on these reviews from the start, what are you thinking about the book? what is your vision of this water world that Sisko is now stationed on? How would you describe the station there? Please let us know. Even send us a mock-up. We'd appreciate it.
Absolutely.
And with that, we're going to wrap things up. Thank you for being here, John. Thank you guys for listening. And until next time, live long and prosper.
You've been listening to the Discussing Network. Find out more at discussingnetwork.com.
Can I say that like shut up Wesley? I can just go shut up Clarence?